got off the phone with, I know. He's telling me who we just got off the phone with. He actually called her by her name, which is awesome. So we just got off the phone with Dr. F. And I know, baby. He's trying to correct me on her name. So anyhow, I'm having to clean my table because I just sprayed the clothes with Shout, and I got Shout all over the table, so I'm trying to clean it. So anyhow, just got off the phone with her, and not much has changed. She's not doing any type of changes or anything like that. Let's walk with me. She's not going to be doing any type of changes to his medication or anything like that, because not really much has really changed. For the fact of, I have been having some difficulties with him, but I was saying the same thing as she was, which was a lot of the things that's going on right now has just to do a lot with his routine being changed up, because I was off all week last week because my client's brother came down and spent the week with her, and so that kind of threw him for a loop. Him and Elena both were complete hellions, got into a lot of trouble over the weekend, and which they were so bad to where it resulted in us not going to something that's called Touch a Truck. Like, touch a truck. I don't know if this is everywhere. I've never heard of it until I came here to Texas. And for those of you that may not know what that is, it's a lot of different, we've actually not been able to go, but apparently it is where like a bunch of different type of vehicles show up, and kids can touch them and get in them, kind of play with them. Stuff like cop cars, fire trucks, ambulances, tractors, like all kinds of different things like that. And I've heard really good things about it, and since they were up older, I was really hoping we could go this year, but that was their consequence for not being good. And so yeah, so anyhow, so we didn't get to go to that because of how bad they were. And they're just doing a lot of fighting and arguing with each other, a lot of bugging each other, and which is something that I had been talking to the therapist about, and it's because we've put some changes in place, because I used to keep them separated because they were always fighting and bugging each other, and which would result in one of them getting aggravated and pissed at the other one, and somebody would end up getting hurt. And just a lot of yelling and screaming at each other and making each other cry. And so I used to separate them. Well, the therapist doesn't really want me to do that. She wants for them to do more together, including the fighting, you know, just so they can learn how to play nicely with each other. But also to teach them that when one of them says, okay, I'm done playing with you, I want to be myself, the other one needs to learn to leave them alone instead of continue to bug. So there's been a lot of changes to how we do things, a lot of just changes to their routines, which tends to kind of throw Caleb for a loop. And the fact that he's been staying with my mom, and when I say staying with my mom, like, she's the one that's watching them now, for the time being, partly because that was something that the therapist had suggested, is she babysit them for a while so she could kind of see the issues that we were having with that, which really he hasn't been as bad as he used to be, but now I'm starting to have those issues out of Elena. But as the therapist said, a lot of the issues that I'm having out of Elena is learned behavior from her watching Caleb. Sorry, that was a emergency weather alert, text, whatever you want to call it. For those of you that may not know, sorry about that. I heard the word ouchie, and a yell scream from Elena. So, as I was saying, everything that I'm dealing with Elena is learned behavior. Everything that I'm dealing with Caleb right now is pretty much just because of the changes that's happening, and he doesn't do very well with changes. He does tend to act up when things changes, routine is broken, yada yada yada. So also I think what I was originally saying was the therapist had wanted me to let my mom watch them so she can kind of see the difference of how they acted when they were with my nanny versus how they act with my mom. So, but like I said, he hasn't really been that bad here lately. And it's kind of like I was telling Dr. F, it's kind of hit and miss. Some days he's good about leaving, sometimes he's not good about leaving. He does tend to think that he doesn't have to listen to me when she's around. But there are going to be some changes. When my mom first started watching them, I really did not reiterate. I was going to, but I didn't really reiterate a lot of my rules, and make sure that she knew that I would never actually say it to her like this. Of course, I have to word it differently, so it doesn't come off as like disrespectful or anything, but pretty much tell her, these are my rules. If you do not follow them, you will not see them. And yes, I know that sounds harsh, and of course I won't actually say it that bluntly, but the thing of the matter is that, and this was something that one of our new doctors, which I will tell you about in a moment, has kind of said that just because Caleb has a mental issue does not mean that he can get away with things. He still has to be disciplined. He still has to be taught from, right from wrong, as well as Elena. And so whatever rules, and she even told me, she says, make sure that no matter where they go, whether it's with a parent or, a grandparent, another parent, or whoever the case may be, aunt, uncle, auntie, whoever, they need to go by your rules. When you set rules and you want them to be disciplined for certain things, or to be disciplined in a certain way, every person that they are with needs to know all of those rules, all the things that you get onto them for, all the things you do not allow, and how you discipline for each thing. She said, so if he hits his sister and your discipline is to put him in the corner, okay, everybody needs to know, if he hits his sister, he goes straight to the corner. If he runs in the house, she's like, if that is in a, because I was telling her I don't really let them run in the house. That is something that I'm working on trying to get them not to do. She's like, okay, so one of the things that you discipline them for is running in the house. She's like, so take your discipline that you use for that, and you tell the babysitters, the aunties, the uncles, the family members who may watch them, be like, okay, if they run, this is the discipline for that. And you do it every single time. If I find out that you do not do this every single time like I do at my house, then they are not allowed to come back. Because that means I cannot trust you to discipline my children, because when they come home, it's in their brain. Okay, well, I was just over there. I was just able to do that, so that means I can do it here. And going to like 5 different houses, and the rules are different at each house, and certain things are allowed in some houses and then they're not allowed in the other houses. She says that tends to create a lot of confusion, because she's like, for example, they go to grandmama's and she lets them run in the house, or she lets them strip to nothing but their underclothes, or she lets them jump on the beds or jump on the couch, but those are things that you don't allow. But when they go to grandmama's house, she allows it. So they're sitting here, they doing all these things that you do not allow them to do at your house. So when they come home, they're getting in trouble for those things. And they're like, well, I was just with grandmama and grandmama didn't spank me for it. Grandmama didn't put me in the corner for it, but mommy's put me in the corner for it. And so she's like that. And she said, especially with kids like Caleb, who has, whether they're autistic, whether they have, you know, ADHD, she says it's for every child, not just with someone who has any type of mental issues or any type of disability. She says just a normal child, that will confuse the ever-living daylights out of them. She said, but with somebody like Caleb who has some type of mental disability like autism or ADHD, even ODD, ADD, she's like all of those mental issues, it confuses them even more because their brains don't work the same way as an everyday child would. She said, so if it's confusing for an everyday child, how confusing do you think it would be for someone whose brain does not function or work in the same capacity as, you know, a normal, per se, child? Which makes 100%, it's 100%, you know, I agree. And I understand that 100%. So, and Dr. F kind of reiterated kind of what Dr. A, and I will tell y'all about her in a minute, that's something that Dr. A said. Or, I don't think she's a doctor. I'm not exactly sure. But anyhow, what Dr. A said, she did kind of reiterate. So, she told me about the same video that she's told me before, and I kind of hadn't really watched it all the way through. I've kind of bits and pieces, because I'd start it, and then I'd have to stop, because I'd have to do something else, and it's like between an hour and a half to 2 hour video, and I really never really have that much time by myself, with no interruptions. So that's really hard for me to actually sit down and watch it all the way through without any type of interruptions. Because even if I am here by myself, which is very rare, but on like a rare occasion, like y'all have seen before, very rare occasion, like a lion takes them somewhere to play or whatever, and I'm by myself, I normally have other things I need to do. Like I got to do the laundry, I've got to clean the bathroom, I've got to clean the kitchen, I've got to, you know, just clean the house in general, or I have to make videos. And, you know, I'm not saying that me making YouTube or TikTok videos is more important than, you know, my child's health. It's not more important than my child's mental health. Go put it on my bed. It's not more important than my child's mental health or health in general. But this video is about other ways of discipline, if that makes sense. You know, how to handle certain temper tantrums, or you know, just giving you different ideas on how to handle certain situations, different consequences for, you know, certain things, yada yada yada. Because, you know, they really don't want you spanking your kids anymore. They don't want to do any type of physical punishment, physical consequence. The therapist, Dr. S, has even, you know, told me don't even put them in the corner, because that cuts them off from, they feel like they're cut off from the family. And I can kind of see that. But I've tried, and of course, you know, when I told her, I was like, you know, that really doesn't work. You know, what you told me to do doesn't necessarily work for Caleb. That tends to make things work. And she's like, okay, well, let's try this. And so she doesn't want him to be cut off, but it's one of those things to where he kind of has to be kind of cut off, because he's got to have it to where he's looking at some, like a solid wall, that way and to where he like can't move, kind of like in a corner, you know, you're staring at a wall and you can't move, you can't talk, which for Caleb, it kind of helps calm him down. And I mean, we realized this for a long time, and we do put him in the corner. We put him in the corner a lot, but and yes, we do use it as a punishment, a consequence to his bad behavior, but a lot of times we put him in there to get him to calm down. He goes in the corner, he sits there, he screams, which is fine, if you know, but after a little while he calms down, and when he gets out, he's like, okay, I'm sorry. That gives him time to calm down and to think about what he did, and he's like, okay, I'm sorry. And it kind of helps, like, it seems, you know, like it calms the brain, you know, calms his brain down to where he's calm, and then I don't have any issues out of him for quite a while. So there's that. Dr. S has suggested that, which Dr. S is the therapist, she has suggested that I contact Head Start and see if there is a Head Start near us, which I looked on Google and there's really not one near us. The closest one is probably about 30 to 35 minute drive, which is not bad, but it's in a town that I am not putting my kid in there. Pretty much everything is like a 30-minute drive, if not longer. Like I said, that's the closest one. And so there is one in the same town that I work at, which would be awesome. You know, if he only went a couple of days a week, then that would be fine. I could have it to where I worked on those days, to where I drop him off, I go to work, I pick him up, pick her up, and let's go. So she wanted him to go ahead and do that before, try to, because depends on where it is, depends on if they have a wait list or not. But if there is not a wait list, go ahead and try to put him in it. That way he can go ahead and start learning how to act with other children, how to act, you know, in a school setting and stuff like that. So she said that that would be really good, actually, for both of them. And from what I read on Google, when she turns 3, which will be at literally the end of May, she'll be able to go, which would be awesome, because if I can go ahead and put her in Head Start, she could go straight from Head Start, do Head Start for a year, and then go straight into pre-K, because she'll be able to start pre-K at 4, because her birthday is before September 1st. And then, you know, literally a year later, she'll be going to kindergarten. So I'm hoping that that will be something that I will be able to do, because for a couple of different reasons. If they were already in some type of setting, it would be easier. You know, whether, you know, we move towns, or even if we move states, if we were to ever move back to Florida, which would be kind of awesome. You know, Florida, it's kind of, from what I understand, it's kind of mandatory. It's something called VVK or VBK or BBK, something like that. Alliance says it so fast I can't really understand it. That's when the Spanish comes out a little bit. And so, like, it's mandatory. It's pretty much their Head Start, and it's mandatory before they go to pre-K. And so, I mean, that would be fine. Even if we move back to Mississippi, which is where I'm originally from, there are places, you know, there are Head Start places there. The church where I'm from, they have their own school. It's a Montessori school, and they pretty much go from kindergarten to graduation, or, you know, to like 12, I think. You know, they also have a actual daycare, you know, for, you know, from infancy to, you know, 4 or 5, depending on when their birthday is. And then when they leave the daycare, they go straight into the school for, you know, whatever, you know, for, you know, pre-K or, you know, whatever. So, like, you know, of course, and it's in a, you know, our church setting, so to speak, because it's right there on the campus, or, you know, the church grounds. So, like, he would always, no matter which state we moved to, he'd always, you know, have something to go to. The thing is we just got to get him in one first. Now, if there's a wait list, he will not be able to, but if I could go ahead and get her on the wait list now, You know, and even if it is a year, okay, well, you know, depending on the wait list itself, if it takes a year, then it's not going to be that big of a deal because she'll be starting pre-K. So that is that. Now, in my next video, I will be telling y'all kind of who Dr. A is, or Miss A, and explain to y'all who she is.